Hello all, this is Connor, the producer of Railroader. In today's video, we'll be looking at the Centralized Traffic Control System, or CTC. Let's go ahead and get started. Here we have our Union Switch and Signal CTC system. On the left being the western end of the railroad, and the Appalachia branch, which comes off of the Appalachia junction down here. On the right is the eastern end of the railroad, over here. Scattered throughout, I have a few trains that we're going to operate today. So let's go ahead and sit down in the dispatcher's chair and get started. Let's go over some basics. As you can see, the CTC system is made up of a few different elements. Let's start with this switch down here. This switch allows you to set your railroad from automatic control to centralized control. To explain what that means, let's go out to a nearby interlocking to talk about each mode. Welcome to West Bryson Interlocking. At this location, signals govern traffic over this switch in and out of the Bryson area. When in CTC mode, these signals are controlled by the player from the dispatcher's office CTC panel. However, when the system is in ABS mode, as it is now, the signals will be set automatically based on several conditions. It should also be noted that switches are manually controlled by the player from the interlocking when in ABS mode. What are some of the conditions that the signals look for when in automatic mode? It will look at the occupancy between this signal and the next signal, in other words, if there are any trains ahead. It will look at the position of switches between here and the next signal. Then also will check what the next signal will say to the engineer. For example, this signal is currently at clear, meaning the track is set for the train to go down the main line on the one track here, and that the next signal is not showing stop. Now with those conditions in mind, what happens if I reverse this switch? We can see that the signal updates to a diverging approach. This means the train will change tracks and go left onto the number 2 track instead of going straight on the number 1 track. It also tells the engineer that the next signal is at stop and to approach it with caution. Something interesting to note at this signal is it's equipped to display a unique signal indication. It is able to tell a train to operate at restricted speed. Restricted speed means that an engineer must operate their train being able to stop within half the distance of what they can see and to watch out for anything that might be out of place, such as a misaligned switch or a train on the tracks ahead. If I spawn an engine on the other side of this signal, you can see the signal updates to this new special indication, also called a restricting. Now that we've discussed ABS mode, looked at some signal indications, and seen how it all works, let's go back to the dispatcher's office and look at how to operate the railroad in CTC mode. Let's start looking at some controls that make up the CTC panel. You can see that there are 2 sets of switches, one marked switch, one marked signal, with a row of buttons below them. Starting from the top, you have the switch controls. They have 2 positions, normal and reverse. How do we know what a normal or reverse position is? Looking at the CTC panel map above, we can see that some of these graphics are painted solid with no interruptions. This shows the normal position of the track. Meanwhile, the reverse position is the direction that is interrupted by this little black line going to this track up here. This is a simple way to understand normal and reverse position for any switch. Let's look at the next set of controls, the signal controls. You can see that they have 3 positions, left, center, and right. Left and right refer specifically to the panel. In other words, if you set the control to the left position, it will want to send traffic in the left direction on the panel. Alternatively, if you set the control to the right side of this control, then it will want to send traffic to the right side of the panel. The center is kind of a neutral or stop position. If you put the control in this position, it will set the signal at stop. Now, what is the last row of buttons for? These are called code buttons. When you set the switches above to what you want, you have to send those commands to the field. You use the code button to do that. A quick note before we continue. The CTC system is an interlocked system. That means when you perform certain actions with the system, it will lock out other actions from happening. To show an example of this, let's look at Governor's Island. You can see I've put in a signal on the left side of Governor's Island to send traffic to the right. And when I try to put in a signal on the right side of Governor's Island to send traffic to the left, the signal does not want to come in. This is what interlocking means. It is a safety feature to prevent trains from coming head-on with one another unless it is a location where such activities can be done with proper authority. At a place like Bryson, where the signals are designed to give restricting aspects in the field, this allows trains to operate at restricted speed toward one another if the situation demanded it. But in most cases, it should be clearly understood that the signal system is designed to not work when trying to point two signals toward one another. Now with that out of the way, let's move some trains. Our first thing we want to look at doing is getting this Sylva to Bryson City freight train at Ella into the siding at Governor's Island, and then getting this eastbound passenger train from Bryson down to Ella. So we're doing what's called setting up a meet. We're going to bring this train down here, and this train up here. In order to do this, let's first trace where the trains need to go. This one needs to go from here, straight across to here, and eventually out to here. The freight train needs to come down onto the main line, and then down into the siding again. Alright, it sounds like the train in the siding at Ella needs more work first. So let's start with them. They're also a freight train, so they might take longer to get from the siding to the other siding. So we can see that this location where a switch is located is currently set in the normal position. We need to reverse the switch in order to bring the train onto the main line. Remember that the reverse position is the position that is not the solid line. So you see the little black line in there like we talked about before. Now that that's done, we need to set this train in this direction. This is going toward the left side of the panel, so we need to set the signal there to left. Let's go ahead and submit our commands and see what happens. While we're waiting for that train to come out, let's set up the Governor's Island on the east or right side for the freight train to head into the siding. We can see that it's another reverse move, with the traffic wanting to go left on the panel. Left, reverse. That now has the train running from the main line into the siding. There he comes, coming right on out. So now that we have the freight train on the move, let's go look at the passenger train. The passenger train needs to go straight over this switch, over the main line, straight through this switch, and to this location to wait for the freight train. Let's double check our switches. So we need to set this switch, normal, this switch, normal. Perfect. Now we need to set the passenger train to travel in the right direction, because it's heading for the right side of the panel. So we'll set the Bryson City signal here, and set the Governor's Island signal here, which should put him here. So let's go ahead and send out the signals, and see if the passenger train decides to pull out of Bryson. Oh, I can hear him in the distance slowly chugging away. He must have seen the signal. Let's move our labels to follow where the trains are going. And let's see what happens. I'm going to fast forward here so we can follow the lights a little bit quicker than it would normally take. So stay with me while we watch these lights slowly progress into their respective sidings. Welcome back. As you can see, the freight train is just coming off the main line into the siding. There he goes. And now, all we have to do is wait for the passenger train to come in from the west or left side of Governor's Island before we can both move the freight train to the west or left and the passenger train to the east or right. Oh, there he is. As we can see, the freight train is slowly clearing the switch here. Oh, now that he's clear, here's what we can do. We can set this switch normal, because we need this one to run straight across, and set the traffic to the right. That should let the passenger train on the main track pass by the freight train and continue to the right or east. The same thing goes for now that the passenger train has cleared this left side of Governor's Island. Let's go ahead and set the left signal indication with the switch reversed. And there we go. If we wait patiently, we'll see both trains departing out of Governor's Island here shortly. And with that, we can see that both trains are clear of Governor's Island and the meet is now complete. This has been a look into the centralized traffic control system in Railroader and how to use it. We thank you for joining us, and we look forward to having you join us in Railroader when we release an early access in December. Thanks for watching.